The rejection hall stretched longer than most planetary stadiums. Mountains of treasure lined the walls, each pile representing a failed attempt to please Emperor Shalvern. Jewels the size of boulders sat forgotten in corners. Advanced weapons capable of destroying stars gathered dust beside them. Priceless artwork from 1,000 worlds hung crooked on walls. Never even properly viewed, Ben Wright pressed his face against the window of the human shuttle, staring at the massive space station shaped like a coiled dragon. At 12 years old, he had seen many strange things since leaving the Mars Colony Group home, but nothing prepared him for the Imperial Dragonhold. The structure orbited twin suns, its metallic scales reflecting orange and red light across the darkness of space. "Stop gawking and sit properly," Ambassador Patricia Okonkwo said, though her voice held no real anger. The older woman had been kind to Ben since they left Earth. She adjusted her formal diplomatic robes and reviewed notes on her tablet for the 100th time. Dr. Raymond Foster sat across from them, his face pale with worry. 300 years without accepting a single gift. What makes us think we'll be different? Because we have to be, Lieutenant Sophia Reyes answered from the pilot seat. Earth needs passage through Dragon territory. Our trade depends on it. Ben pulled his worn sketchbook from his backpack and opened it to a fresh page. While the adults worried, he drew what he saw through the window. The Dragon Station's curves and angles fascinated him. He wondered what kind of being would choose to live in something shaped like themselves. "Why am I here again?" Ben asked quietly. Ambassador Okonkwo smiled. "The Future Voices program. Earth wants young people involved in diplomacy. You represent hope and new perspectives." Ben thought that sounded nice, but suspected the real reason was simpler. Nobody knew what to do with orphan kids from failed colonies. Sending them on diplomatic missions at least looked productive. The shuttle docked after 2 days of waiting for permission. The airlock hissed open, revealing guards in dark armor. They weren't human or anything Ben recognized from his studies. Each guard stood 3 times his height, with scales that shimmered like oil on water and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim corridor. "Lesser dragons," Dr. Foster whispered. "Cousins to the Imperial line? They serve as warriors and administrators." One guard gestured with a clawed hand. "Follow, do not touch anything. Do not speak unless addressed. The Emperor grants you 1 audience. Do not waste it." They walked through corridors filled with more rejected gifts. A Velshara crystal hive pulsed with bioluminescent light, ignored in an alcove. A massive sculpture from the Gormith people depicted the birth of stars, covered in a thin layer of station dust. Ben wanted to stop and look at everything, but the guards moved quickly. The throne room made Ben feel smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The ceiling vanished into darkness above. Floating orbs of contained plasma provided light, casting strange shadows across polished black floors. And there, coiled on a platform of pure obsidian, lay Emperor Shalvern himself. Ben had seen pictures, but pictures meant nothing. The Emperor's body could have wrapped around a small moon. His scales looked like burnished platinum, each one larger than Ben's entire body. Wings lay folded against his sides, membranes thin enough to show the plasma light through them. But his eyes caught and held Ben's attention. Ancient eyes that glowed with inner fire, older than human civilization, holding depths of time Ben couldn't imagine. "Approach," the Emperor's voice rolled through the room, shaking the floor beneath their feet. It resonated not just in Ben's ears, but somehow inside his head, making his teeth ache. Ambassador Okonkwo stepped forward with practiced grace. "Great Emperor Shalvern, ruler of the 17 systems, guardian of the twin suns. We come from Earth bearing gifts of friendship and respect." She gestured, and Lieutenant Reyes opened cases containing Earth's finest offerings. A holographic display showed humanity's greatest art, music from every culture played softly. A sealed container held genetic samples from Earth's diverse biosphere, representing millions of years of evolution. The Emperor didn't move. Didn't even look at the gifts. "More things," his voice rumbled with something like tired disappointment. "More noise. More desperate attempts to buy what cannot be purchased." "Your Radiance," Dr. Foster tried. These represent humanity's cultural achievement across our entire history. I have cultural achievements from species dead before your world cooled from its formation, the Emperor interrupted. His massive head lifted slightly, regarding them with one burning eye. You offer me what everyone offers. Proof of your worth. Evidence of your value. As if I am a merchant to be impressed by merchandise. Ambassador Okonkwo's prepared speech died on her lips. Ben watched her shoulders tighten with stress. You are dismissed, Emperor Shalvern said, lowering his head back to the platform. Leave your trinkets with the others. Perhaps in another 1,000 years someone will remember they exist. The guard stepped forward, making it clear the audience was over. Ambassador Okonkwo opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. Arguing would only make things worse. She bowed deeply and turned away as they filed out. Ben glanced back at the Emperor. For just a moment, their eyes met. Ben expected to see anger or contempt. Instead, he saw something else entirely. Something he recognized from looking in mirrors after his parents died. The Emperor looked lonely. That night, back in their assigned quarters on the station, Ben couldn't sleep. He listened to the adults debate their next move in the adjoining room. They talked about new strategies, different approaches, alternate gifts. None of it felt right to Ben. He pulled out his sketchbook and began to draw the Emperor from memory. Not the powerful, frightening creature everyone else saw. Ben drew what he had glimpsed in those ancient eyes. The weight of centuries. The burden of power with no one to share it. The echo of loss that never quite faded. His pencil moved across paper, and slowly a different image emerged. The Emperor alone, staring at something no one else could see. And beside him, drawn small and simple, Ben added a single figure. A child who understood what it meant to lose everything and have no one who really saw you. Ben studied the finished, drawing in the dim light of his quarters. Tomorrow he would do something probably very stupid, but it felt necessary in a way he couldn't explain. Sometimes, people didn't need grand gestures or expensive gifts. Sometimes they just needed someone to see them. Asterisk. Ben slipped out of the human quarters before dawn. Oh, what passed for dawn on a space station that never truly slept. He had watched the guard rotations the previous evening and knew this hour had the fewest patrols. His sketchbook felt heavy in his hands, though it weighed almost nothing. The station's older sections sprawled like a maze. Ben had memorized the public routes during their first day, noting passages that looked forgotten. He moved quietly through corridors lined with ancient dragon script, past alcoves filled with artifacts that might have been priceless or might have been junk. Everything here felt heavy with age and neglect. He found the garden by accident or maybe by instinct. A door stood slightly ajar, warm light spilling through the gap. Ben peered inside and froze. Emperor Shalvern lay coiled beside a still pool of water. In this private space, away from the throne room's harsh plasma lights, he looked different. Smaller somehow, though he still dwarfed everything around him. His scales had dimmed from platinum to something closer to silver. He stared at his reflection in the pool with an expression Ben recognized immediately. That was how Ben looked at mirrors in the group home. Seeing yourself but searching for something that wasn't there anymore. Ben didn't mean to make a sound, but his shoe scraped against the metal floor. The Emperor's head snapped up, eyes blazing bright with sudden alertness. Those enormous eyes fixed on Ben, and for a heartbeat, Ben thought he might die right there. A human child, the Emperor's voice came softer than in the throne room, but no less powerful. Wandering where you should not be. I'm sorry, Ben managed, though his voice shook. I got lost. Impossible. You are 12 chambers from the human quarters. One does not accidentally travel 12 chambers in the wrong direction. Ben swallowed hard. No point lying to someone who had lived thousands of years. Okay, I followed you. I wanted to see where you went. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Why? Because yesterday, everyone was so focused on giving you stuff, nobody actually looked at you. Ben clutched his sketchbook tighter. But I did. And you look sad. Silence stretched between them. The pool surface rippled slightly from some unseen current. Finally, the Emperor's massive head lowered back toward the water. Sad, he repeated as if tasting the word. What would you know of sadness, small creature barely into existence? My parents died 3 years ago, Ben said simply. Mining dome failed on Callisto. I know what it's like when everyone tries to cheer you up with stuff you don't want, and nobody just sits with you. The Emperor studied him with new intensity. You speak strangely for a diplomatic envoy. I'm not really a diplomat. I'm just a kid from a group home. They brought me along for some program about future voices or whatever. Ben moved closer, no longer afraid. Can I show you something? You presume much, tiny human. Yeah, probably. Ben opened his sketchbook to the drawing he had made. He held it up, hands trembling slightly, the Emperor's eyes focused on the image. His entire body went still in a way that felt different from simply not moving. For a long moment he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed somehow. You saw me like this, alone? Yes, and you drew it. I draw what I see. What I feel, Ben looked at his own drawing. I added me sitting next to you. Because that's what I would want, if I was that sad. Just someone being there. The Emperor's claws extended, each one longer than Ben's arm. Ben tensed, but the great dragon moved with impossible gentleness. He took the paper between two talons as carefully as if it were made of spider silk. 5,000 years, the Emperor said quietly. 5,000 years since my mate died, Valshara the Silver. She was my balance, my calm to my fire, my wisdom to my fury. I'm sorry, Ben said, meaning it. Everyone who comes before me wants something. Trade routes, alliances, power, they offer me treasures to buy my favor. The Emperor stared at the drawing. You offer me understanding. Why? Ben shrugged. Because that's what actually helps. When the other kids at the home try to cheer me up with games or toys, it doesn't work. But when my friend Marcus just sits and draws with me and doesn't try to fix anything, that helps. Wisdom from a child. The Emperor's tone held no mockery. I rejected the Velshara's crystal hives, the Gormuth's offer to reshape planets, the Quillen's star songs that could move souls. All of it rejected. Why? Because they saw what they wanted from me. None saw what I needed. The Emperor looked at Ben directly. What do I need, small human? You seem to see clearly. Ben thought about it. Maybe you need to remember how to want things again? Small things, not Emperor things, just things that matter to you. The Emperor made a sound like grinding stones that might have been a laugh. I have forgotten how to want anything but solitude. That's sad, Ben said honestly. Being alone is okay sometimes, but being lonely all the time is different. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, the Emperor asked, Would you visit again? Show me more of your drawings? Ben smiled. Sure. I've been drawing the station. And I could draw you if you want, not just the sad version. I would like that. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. A dragon's voice called out urgently. Your Radiance, are you well? We detected an unauthorized presence. I am well, Lady Shenville, the Emperor called back. The human child is my guest. See that he is not disturbed when he visits. The footsteps stopped, confusion evident in the silence that followed. As you command, Your Radiance. When Ben finally returned to the human quarters, Ambassador Okonkwo was frantically searching for him. She started to scold him, then stopped when she saw his face. What happened? She demanded. I think, Ben said carefully, we need to stop trying to impress the Emperor. We just need to talk to him. Ben, we had one chance and we failed. The Emperor wants me to visit again, Ben interrupted. He kept my drawing and he talked about his mate who died. Ambassador Okonkwo stared. He talked about Valshara? He never speaks of her, not in 300 years, Ben shrugged. Maybe because nobody asked the right way. News spread through the station like fire through dry grass. The human child had spoken with the Emperor. The Emperor had allowed a second visit. The Emperor had smiled, according to Lady Shenville, though she seemed uncertain about what a dragon smile looked like after centuries without seeing one. Alien. Diplomats crowded the observation decks, trying to catch glimpses of Ben when he walked to the garden. A Velshara ambassador stopped Ambassador Okonkwo in a corridor, its crystalline voice sharp with frustration. We offered living art that grows and thinks. What did your child give that we could not? Honestly, Okonkwo replied, I'm still trying to understand it myself. In the garden, Ben sat cross-legged beside the pool while Emperor Shalvern watched him draw. The Emperor had asked about Earth, about human cities, about how such short-lived creatures built anything meaningful. Ben answered while his pencil moved across paper. We build because we won't last, Ben explained, sketching the Mars colony where he lived. If we lived forever like you, maybe we wouldn't rush so much. But we know we've only got maybe 80 or 90 years, so we try to do things that matter. Rushing? The Emperor mused. Yes, I have noticed this about younger species. Always moving, always building, never still. Is that bad? I thought so. I thought wisdom came from patience, from waiting, from observing across centuries. The Emperor's tail moved slightly, a gesture Ben had learned meant uncertainty. But perhaps I have been too still, too patient. So patient I stopped moving at all, Ben looked up from his drawing. After my parents died, I didn't want to do anything for a long time. Just stayed in my room. One of the counselors said that grief can freeze you if you're not careful. Frozen, the Emperor repeated. Yes, an apt description. Over the next week, Ben visited daily. The Emperor began asking questions beyond simple curiosity. What did humans do with their dead? How did they remember lost ones? The questions grew more personal, more raw. Ben answered honestly, describing memorial services and the way his group home had planted a tree for his parents. We talk about them, Ben said. Share stories. Keep them alive in our hearts and memories. The Emperor listened with an intensity that made the air feel heavy. Finally, he made a decision that would shake the entire station. I wish to create a memorial for Velshara, he announced during an official court session. Dragons and alien diplomats alike fell silent in shock. I have avoided this for 5 millennia. No more, Lady Shenville stepped forward carefully. Your Radiance, this is unexpected. How may we serve? Invite representatives from all species in my territory. I will honor my mate's memory properly, as the human child has taught me loss requires acknowledgement, not burial. The preparations began immediately. But the Emperor had one more request, this one directed at Ben. Would you draw her? From my memories? Ben felt suddenly small again. I've never drawn a dragon I haven't seen. I will share the memory. If you are willing. Ben nodded, not trusting his voice. The Emperor lowered his massive head until one eye filled Ben's entire vision. A claw, razor-sharp but moving with perfect control, touched Ben's forehead gently. The memory flooded in like warm water. Ben saw Velshara the Silver, her scales like moonlight given form. She flew through nebula clouds, graceful beyond words. Her eyes held intelligence and kindness in equal measure. And love, so much love when she looked at young Shalvern. Before he became Emperor, before the weight of millennia, Ben gasped as the memory released him. Tears ran down his face, though he couldn't say if they were his or echoes of the Emperor's grief. She was beautiful, Ben whispered. Yes, Ben spent 3 days drawing. The Emperor visited often, offering quiet corrections. Here, the curve of her wing should be sharper. There, her eyes held more light. They worked together, and slowly Velshara emerged on paper. Ambassador Okonkwo watched from a distance. Amazed, Dr. Foster took endless notes about this unprecedented interaction. Lieutenant Reyes kept curious aliens away, giving Ben space to work. When Ben finished, he held up the portrait. It showed Velshara in flight, scales catching starlight, eyes bright with life and joy. The Emperor stared at it for a long time. Then, for the first time in 5,000 years, Emperor Shalvern wept. His tears weren't water. They were liquid fire, burning bright as they fell, evaporating before they hit the ground. But Ben didn't flinch or step back. He moved closer and placed his small hand on the Emperor's massive claw. It's okay to cry, Ben said softly. My counselor said tears are how we let the sadness out so it doesn't stay trapped inside forever. I have been trapped, the Emperor's voice shook. Frozen in grief for so long I forgot how to thaw. You're thawing now. The Emperor lowered his head to the ground, bringing his eye level with Ben. Thank you, small one. You have given me the greatest gift anyone could offer, permission to grieve. Word of the Emperor's tears spread faster than news of Ben's first visit. Dragons who had served in cold silence for centuries began speaking amongst themselves. Lady Shenval confided to another courtier that she had lost siblings in ancient wars and never properly mourned. Admiral Drexon admitted he still carried pain from losing his wing partner in battle. The memorial grew from a simple ceremony into something larger. Dragons contributed memories of their own losses. Other species offered their mourning traditions. The Quillans prepared grief songs. The Velshara created temporary crystal shrines. Even the massive Gormith people sent stone singers to perform remembrance vibrations. The Emperor observed these preparations with something Ben recognized: hope, tentative and fragile, but real. "You have started something," the Emperor told Ben one evening in the garden. "My court has not spoken of personal matters in living memory. Now they share losses, offer comfort, remember together." "Is that bad?" Ben asked. "No," the Emperor's voice held wonder. "It is healing for all of us." The memorial day arrived with hundreds of ships gathering around the Dragonhold. Ben stood beside Ambassador Okonkwo on a special platform, watching as dragons flew in formation. The twin suns provided a backdrop of fire as Emperor Shalvern spoke publicly about Velshara for the first time in 300 years. His voice carried across space through speakers and psychic projection, reaching every ship. He described her wisdom, her compassion, her strength. He spoke of love and loss and the cost of burying grief beneath duty. "I forgot her greatest lesson," the Emperor's voice echoed. "She taught me that power without heart is merely tyranny. I forgot this. A small human helped me remember." Ben felt hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him. He wanted to hide, but Ambassador Okonkwo's hand on his shoulder kept him steady. The ceremony concluded with dragons releasing spheres of starfire that combined into a temporary constellation shaped like Velshara. It burned bright, then dispersed, carrying memory across the stars. Species from across the galaxy added their own elements, and for a moment old enemies and strangers united in shared understanding of loss. 3 weeks after the memorial, Emperor Shalvern did something no one expected. He summoned the Quillan ambassadors who had offered star songs. Years ago, the aquatic beings arrived in specialized water suits, their bioluminescent bodies pulsing with nervous energy. They remembered their rejection clearly, the Emperor's cold dismissal burning in their collective memory. "Sing for me," the Emperor commanded, but his tone held no anger. "Please, I wish to hear your offering properly this time." The Quillans exchanged uncertain glances through their transparent helmets. Then, slowly, they began their star song. Telepathic harmonies filled the chamber, not heard but felt. Music that spoke of nebula births and the dance of planets. Melodies woven from cosmic radiation and the dreams of beings who lived in water deeper than Earth's oceans. Tears of liquid fire streamed down the Emperor's face again. When the song ended, he bowed his massive head. "It is beautiful. I was a fool to dismiss it. Please forgive me." The Quillans stood speechless. An emperor apologizing was unprecedented. News traveled fast. Within days, the Emperor had summoned others whose gifts he had rejected. The Velshara brought their living crystal hives again. This time, the Emperor truly looked at them, seeing the mathematical beauty in their growth patterns, the art in their bioluminescence. "Remarkable," he admitted. "I saw only bribes before. Now I see craftsmanship and meaning." The Gormith returned with their offer to reshape a moon into a memorial garden. The Emperor accepted, working with them to design something that honored not just Velshara, but all who grieved lost loved ones. Ben watched these reconciliations from the garden, sketching each meeting. Ambassador Okonkwo found him there one afternoon, his pages filled with images of aliens and dragons in conversation. "You changed everything," she said, sitting beside him. "I just drew a picture and told the truth," Ben replied, not looking up from his work. "That's more than most diplomats manage in entire careers." Ben finally met her eyes. He wasn't really rejecting their gifts. He was too sad to accept anything. "Like how I couldn't eat for a week after my parents died, even though people kept bringing food." Dr. Foster joined them, excitement evident in his quick steps. The Emperor has announced major policy changes. Opening all trade routes, not just one. Establishing cultural exchange programs. Creating what he calls empathy councils to advise on diplomatic matters. The galaxy is talking about emotional intelligence as valuable as military strength, Okonkwo added. Humanity is being recognized as bridge builders? Ben shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. Anyone could have done it. But you did it, Lieutenant Reyes said, approaching with her usual military precision. That's what matters. That evening, Ben sat with the Emperor in the garden as had become their routine. The great dragon seemed lighter somehow, as if the weight of millennia had lessened. I have been thinking, the Emperor said, about creating something new. A corps of young beings from various species learning to understand each other. Like school? More than that. Ambassadors of empathy. To help prevent conflicts before they require military solutions. The Emperor's eye focused on Ben. I would like you to be among the first. Ben's pencil stopped moving. I'm just a kid. Exactly. You see clearly because you are not clouded by politics or ambition. You draw what is real, not what you wish to see. I don't know, Ben said honestly. That sounds like a lot of responsibility. Consider it. You need not decide now. Over the following weeks, other species nominated young people for this bridge course. A Quillan youth named Shen who communicated through melodic tones. A Gormith child named Rock, barely 200 years old. A Velshara called Tick with 40 legs and a talent for crystal sculpting. They gathered on the station, all nervous and uncertain. Ben found himself the unofficial leader, though he never asked for the role. They'd bonded over shared feelings of inadequacy and wonder. Their first mission came sooner than expected. Two species, the Hreth and the Novan, were disputing mining rights on an asteroid field. Traditional diplomacy had stalled into stubborn silence. The young ambassadors approached it differently. Instead of formal negotiations, they organized a shared meal. Got both sides talking about families and fears rather than legal claims and territorial rights? Why do you need the asteroids? Ben asked the Hreth representative directly. Our home system is dying. We need resources to build new habitats. And you? He asked the Novan. The asteroids contain minerals sacred to our ancestors. Mining them feels like desecration. So you need homes and you need to honor your ancestors, Ben summarized. Those aren't opposite things. They're both important. Through careful listening and creative thinking, they found compromise. The Hreth could mine specific asteroids in exchange for helping the Novan build a memorial station in the field. Both sides got what they truly needed, not just what they demanded. The success brought attention Ben wasn't ready for. Media requests flooded in. Schools wanted him to speak. He felt crushed under expectations. One night he broke down in his quarters, overwhelmed. The Emperor found him there, somehow knowing Ben needed him. Everyone expects me to fix things, Ben sobbed. I can't do that. I'm just a kid who draws. You do not fix things, the Emperor said gently. You remind people to see each other? That is enough, but what if I fail? Then you fail. Failure does not erase the good you have already done. The Emperor's tail curled protectively around Ben. I have been unfair, placing such weight on your small shoulders. Let me help you, as you help me. They established boundaries together. Ben would participate in the bridge course but not be its center. He would have time to be a child, to draw for himself, to rest. Lady Shenval became a mentor, not a handler. Other adults stepped up to share the burden. Ben completed a new drawing that week. The Emperor in his full power, but the image showed both might and kindness. Powerful yet approachable. The dragon he was becoming rather than the tyrant he had been. This is how I want to be remembered, the Emperor said softly. Not as someone who inspired fear, but as someone who learned to open his heart. Ben smiled, finally feeling the weight lift. I'll make sure everyone knows the real you. And I will make sure the galaxy knows the real you. Not a miracle worker or savior. Just a brave child who offered kindness when others offered bargains. They sat together in comfortable silence, human and dragon, both healing in their own ways. Outside the garden, the galaxy was changing. But in this moment, they were simply two beings who had found understanding across impossible differences. And that, Ben thought as he began a new sketch, was enough. 6 months passed, and the bridge corps grew from 4 nervous youngsters to 30 members representing 20 different species. They operated from a dedicated wing of the Dragonhold. Though their work took them across the galaxy, Ben adjusted slowly to his new role. Some days felt natural, like when he helped a Farron child explain their cultural fears to Gormith miners. Other days felt impossible, like when military leaders expected him to solve century-old territorial disputes over lunch. His sketchbook filled with faces, Teak drawing crystal patterns in the air with her many legs, Shen practicing speech tones that could shatter or soothe, Rock carefully learning to move his massive body without breaking smaller beings' things. Each member brought unique perspectives, and Ben learned from all of them. The Emperor watched their progress with evident pride, though he maintained careful distance. He had learned from his earlier mistake of relying too heavily on Ben. Now, Lady Shenval coordinated the young ambassadors while the Emperor provided guidance without pressure. Ambassador Okonkwo remained on the station as Earth's permanent representative. Trade flourished through the open dragon routes. Human ships traveled freely, establishing relationships with dozens of species. But more importantly, Earth became known for something beyond technology or resources. Humans became known for listening. Dr. Foster published papers on empathic diplomacy that were translated into hundreds of languages. Lieutenant Reyes trained security forces in de-escalation techniques. And Ben, despite his reluctance, became a symbol of something the galaxy needed. Not human superiority, but human connection. One evening, Ben sat in the garden working on a particularly difficult sketch. He was trying to capture the way starlight reflected off the pool, but couldn't get the angles right. The Emperor appeared silently, settling beside him. "Struggling?" the Emperor asked. "Light is hard," Ben muttered. "It moves differently in space than on planets." "May I show you something?" The Emperor extended one claw and touched the pool's surface. Starfire spread across the water in controlled patterns, bending the light exactly how Ben had been trying to capture. It lasted only seconds before fading, but Ben's pencil flew across the page, catching the memory. "Dragons used to create art like this constantly," the Emperor said quietly. "Before we decided power mattered more than beauty." "Why did you stop?" "Fear, perhaps. Creating something beautiful means caring about it. Caring makes you vulnerable." The Emperor's reflection rippled in the pool. "After Velshara died, I stopped creating anything. If I built nothing, I reasoned I could lose nothing more." "But you were already lost," Ben said softly. "Just in a different way." "Yes, frozen in place, as you once said." They sat quietly for a while. Then the Emperor asked, "Do you regret this? Being here instead of home?" Ben thought about the Mars Colony Group home, his small room with its single window, the other orphans who understood loss but were too busy surviving to truly connect. Then he thought about Teak's crystalline laughter, Shen's songs that felt like gentle rain in his mind, Rock's careful attempts to make human-sized furniture as a gift. "Sometimes," Ben admitted, "I miss things being simple. Just drawing and not having people watch everything I do." "You could return. The bridge corps would continue without you." "I know, but I don't want to leave yet." Ben met the Emperor's enormous eye. "You taught me something too, you know. What could I teach you?" "That being scared of caring about stuff doesn't protect you. It just makes you alone." Ben touched his drawing of the starfire on water. "I was getting like that. After my parents died, I stopped making friends. Figured if I didn't get close to anyone, it wouldn't hurt when they left. And now? Now I have friends who aren't even human. That's weird and scary and kind of amazing." The Emperor made that grinding sound that Ben had learned was laughter. "You are wiser than many beings 10 times your age." "I'm really not. I'm just trying to figure things out like everyone else." A communication alert chimed. Lady Shenval's voice came through. "Your Radiance, Ambassador Ben, we have a situation." The Corvith and the Illith have broken their ceasefire. Fighting has resumed in the border systems. Ben's stomach dropped. The Corvith and Illith had been at war for 50 years before a fragile peace was brokered 3 years ago. If that peace shattered, thousands would die. The Emperor rose, his full size suddenly apparent again. I will send military forces to establish a buffer zone. Wait, Ben said, standing up. Can the bridge corps try first? This is war, young one. Not a mining dispute or cultural misunderstanding. But wars start from those things, Ben argued. Maybe we can stop it before it gets worse. The Emperor studied him. You would risk yourself? That's what you taught me. Creating things means caring about them. Caring means being vulnerable. But it also means trying. After a long pause, the Emperor nodded. Very well. Take your corps. But I will have military ships standing by. At the first sign of danger, you retreat. Deal. 2 days later, Ben and the bridge corps arrived at the border station where Corvith and Illith representatives refused to meet. The young ambassadors set up in a neutral bay, creating a space that belonged to neither species. The Corvith were reptilian and proud, their scales marked with battle scars. The Illith were crystalline and ancient, their voices resonating through mineral frequencies. Both species had deep grievances and deeper hate. Ben didn't pretend to understand 50 years of war. Instead, he asked each side to explain one thing. What do you want for your children? The question surprised them. Warriors and diplomats stumbled over answers. Finally, a Corvith general spoke. I want my son to know peace. To not grow up planning for war. An Illith elder resonated softly. We want our young to see beauty beyond battlefields. To remember we once created art, not just weapons. Ben looked between them. You want the same things. They killed my brother, the Corvith general snapped. They destroyed our sacred gardens, the Illith elder countered. Yes, Ben agreed. You've both lost so much. And you can keep fighting and lose more. Or you can try something different. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. The bridge corps worked constantly, translating not just words but emotions. Shen's songs helped both sides express grief they couldn't voice. Teak created crystal memorials honoring the dead from both species. Rock's patient presence reminded everyone that size didn't determine worth. Slowly, painfully, the Corvith and Illith began talking. Not about victory or surrender, but about wounds and wishes. About children who deserved better than endless war. When Ben returned to the Dragonhold, he was exhausted. The Emperor waited in the garden, and Ben collapsed beside the pool without ceremony. Did you succeed? The Emperor asked. They're talking. Really talking. It's not peace yet, but it's a start. Ben closed his eyes. I'm so tired. You did well, small one. I had help. Everyone helped. The Emperor's tail curled gently around Ben, warm and protective. Yes, that is the lesson, is it not? None of us can carry everything alone. Ben fell asleep there, beside the pool where he had first seen the Emperor's loneliness. And the ancient dragon kept watch over the human child, who had taught him to care again. 5 years changed everything and nothing. Ben turned 17 on the Dragonhold, surrounded by friends from a dozen worlds. Teak made him a crystal sculpture that caught light in impossible ways. Shen sang a birthday melody that made his heart feel full. Rock carefully crafted a human-sized chair that didn't collapse under weight. His 5th successful attempt, the bridge corps had grown to over 200 members. They operated across the galaxy now, not fixing problems, but helping beings see each other clearly. Success rates weren't perfect. Some conflicts ran too deep for empathy alone. But more often than not, listening prevented violence. Earth thrived. The Mars colony where Ben grew up had expanded, and the group home became a training center for young diplomats. Children who had lost everything learned to help others find connection. Ambassador Okonkwo oversaw the program, her career crowned by humanity's reputation as peacemakers. Emperor Shalvern transformed alongside his empire. The cold tyrant who rejected everything became a leader who listened. Dragons learned to express emotions they had buried for millennia. Other species followed suit, and the galaxy became incrementally kinder. But Ben struggled with fame he never wanted. Universities offered scholarships. Governments wanted him to lead diplomatic missions. Media portrayed him as some kind of miracle worker. He was just someone who drew pictures and tried to understand people. "I want to be normal," he told Lieutenant Reyes one afternoon. She was older now, with silver threading through her dark hair, but still his friend. "Normal isn't an option anymore," she said gently. "But you can define what your life looks like." Ben had been thinking about that. He loved the bridge corps, loved helping, but felt disconnected from something essential. He missed the simple act of drawing without purpose. Creating art just because beauty mattered. The Emperor noticed Ben's restlessness during one of their garden meetings. These happened less frequently now, both of them busy with their own responsibilities. But they still made time. "You are unhappy," the Emperor observed. "Not unhappy? Just confused." Ben sketched idle patterns in his notebook. "I'm supposed to start university next year. Study xenanthropology or something? But I don't know if that's what I want." "What do you want?" Ben laughed. "You asked me that 5 years ago. About what you needed. Now you're asking about me?" 5 years ago, I had forgotten how to want anything. You reminded me. The Emperor settled his massive head closer to Ben's level. "Now I ask you the same question. Not what others expect. What do you want?" Ben thought for a long time. "I want to make art, real art, not just diplomatic sketches. I want to show people what I see, how beautiful and strange the galaxy is. But that feels selfish when there's so much work to do." "Creating beauty is work," the Emperor said firmly. "Perhaps the most important work. It reminds us why peace matters. You really think that?" "I know that. Velshara taught me long ago. I forgot, and it took 5,000 years and a child's drawing to remember." The Emperor's eye held warmth. "Create, Ben, make your art. The galaxy needs beauty as much as it needs diplomacy." That conversation changed Ben's path. He enrolled in art school instead of political science, studying techniques from Earth and beyond. He learned to sculpt with Velshara crystal methods from teak, studied Quillen visual harmonics with Shen's help, even attempted small-scale starfire. Art under the Emperor's careful teaching, his first gallery show, featured portraits of the Bridge Corps members and landscapes from a dozen worlds. The Emperor attended, his massive form filling the gallery space. Other species came too, curious about the human who had changed so much. Ben's favorite piece hung in the center. It showed the Emperor by his pool, reflections shimmering in the water. But this version included a second figure clearly visible. A small human child sitting beside him, offering a simple drawing. "You kept coming back to this moment," Dr. Foster observed, studying the painting. "Because that's when everything changed," Ben said. "Not when I gave him the drawing. When he decided to look at it. That choice mattered more than anything I did." The Emperor approached other guests, parting respectfully. "You captured it perfectly. I've been trying for 5 years. Finally got it right. What will you do with it?" Ben smiled. "It's yours. If you want it." The Emperor's laugh rumbled through the gallery. "Another gift. Will I reject this one?" "Hope not. I worked really hard on it. Then I accept, gladly." The Emperor studied the painting with obvious emotion. "Thank you, small one. Though you are not so small anymore. Still small compared to you. In body, perhaps. Not in impact." The gallery show launched Ben's career as an artist. He created pieces that helped beings understand each other visually. His work hung in embassies and homes across the galaxy. But he never forgot where it started. 10 years after that first meeting, Ben returned to the garden for what would be his last visit for a long time. He was 22 now, preparing to travel to distant systems to study their art forms. The Emperor waited by the pool, their traditional meeting place. "You came to say goodbye," the Emperor stated. "For a while. I'll be gone about 3 years. A long time for humans. A heartbeat for dragons." They sat in comfortable silence, watching starlight dance on water. Ben pulled out his current sketchbook, now his 20th since arriving at the Dragonhold. Page after page showed the Emperor's transformation from lonely tyrant to open-hearted leader. Can I ask you something? Ben said, always. Do you regret it? Opening up? Letting yourself care again? It made you vulnerable. The Emperor considered carefully. Every day I risk pain by caring. Any of you could die, and I would grieve. But I would rather feel everything than feel nothing. You taught me that. I think you taught me that too, Ben admitted. I was closing myself off, just like you. Too scared to connect. And now? Now I have friends across the galaxy. A purpose. Art that matters to me? Ben smiled. I'm still scared sometimes, but I'm not frozen anymore. The Emperor touched Ben's shoulder gently with one claw. That is all I wished for you? To live fully, not safely. Ben pulled out one final drawing. He had worked on it for months, wanting it perfect. It showed the garden, the pool, and two figures reflected in the water. A massive dragon and a small human, both changed by their meeting. Both better for knowing each other. This stays here, Ben said, signing it carefully. To remember. The Emperor accepted it with reverence. It will remain here always, long after we are both gone, to remind others that the greatest gifts cannot be bought or commanded. They have to be freely given, Ben finished. From one heart to another. They sat together until dawn cycles began, neither speaking much. Sometimes, Ben had learned, the most important things didn't need words. Just presence. Just care. Just the choice to see and be seen. When Ben finally left for his ship, the Emperor watched from the observation deck. Lady Shenval joined him, her own transformation from rigid courtier to warm mentor complete. Will he return? She asked. Yes, he belongs to the stars now, but this will always be home. You changed him. We changed each other. The Emperor's voice held peace earned through pain. That is what connection means. Neither remains unchanged. In his quarters aboard the departing ship, Ben looked back at the Dragonhold one last time. He thought about a lonely emperor and a lost child, both finding something they didn't know they needed. Not in grand gestures or expensive gifts. Just in the simple act of seeing each other truly, he opened his sketchbook to a fresh page and began to draw. Not the Emperor this time. Not aliens or diplomats or anything important. Just the view from his window. Stars scattered across darkness, beautiful for no reason except that they existed, and that, Ben thought as his pencil moved, was enough. It had always been enough.